Okay, welcome. I'm Cheree Sauer. I'm the owner and founder of Heartfelt Mamas. If you are not familiar with me, I have a free community as well as paid memberships and programs for mompreneurs to grow in faith, motherhood, and business. Today, we're going to be talking about the 3 tips to leverage your hormones and increase productivity as a mompreneur. Dr. Lareesa Ferdinand, who is a women's hormone expert, is going to be joining us live here in a few minutes. So I will let her introduce herself as she comes on. But I just want to say welcome to all of you. If you're watching the replay, welcome. If you are here live with us, please put in the comments where you are from and or your drink of choice. I'm drinking some peppermint green tea. That way I know who's here and I know who's here and I know that you can see this and everything is working the way that it is supposed to. So bear with me for a few minutes as we get everything uploaded and running. I created 2 different links for this. And so I want to make sure that it's not trying to stream to 2 different areas. So if you are live, hey, Mary, oh, yay. Mary, I did not know you were from Oregon, I don't think. I don't know where I thought you were from. California, maybe? Mary, you would have joined the link from the free community. Okay, so it's working from there, so that's good. Bear with me for just a few minutes as I make sure that the membership was able to get on as well. Mary, is the feed okay? Does everything look and sound okay? I've never used this platform before, so it's all a little bit new to me. So I'm like, I hope everything works okay. I'm going to check to make sure that nobody's messaging me through Mighty Network saying they can't get on. Yay, Danny, you made it. Danny, did you join from the free community link or the membership link? I just want to make sure that both links are working and going to the same place, because in my YouTube, it looks like they're going to 2 different places for some reason, even though it's the same link. So Mary says, haha, yep, I'm in a little town called Sandy, and I use the link from the free membership and it all looks and sounds great. Okay, great. Okay, Danny, good. I'm going to message I'm going to message Leanne and just make sure that she is able to get on. Danny, will you do me a favor really quick? And hop out and click on the link from the membership and see if it brings you to the same place. I just want to make sure that it's working right. Okay, while we're getting all the tech and everything set up, I just want to talk a little bit about why I wanted to bring Dr. Lareesa on. So tracking my hormones is something that I started doing about a year ago because I've never been great at it. Like it was always just like, my cycle would just show up and I felt like it was out of nowhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just had this, right? And I was frustrated. Yay, both links come here. Okay, perfect. Now I know for the future that works. So that's awesome. Thank you for checking that out, Denny. So hormones, I just felt like it would come out of nowhere and I was getting frustrated because I never knew when it was coming and it always seemed to be inconsistent. And I would just have days where I felt just flattened, right? Like I just felt like I had no energy, no motivation. I was just grumpy and irritable. And we all know that those are symptoms with that, but I never knew when it was coming. And so I always just felt like, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I have energy on some days and then I just have nothing in me on other days? And so I got an app actually called the Moody app, and I started tracking my hormones and my cycle, and it allows you to put in symptoms. And so I was starting to see these patterns happening. And for me personally, we're going to do a little TMI here because we're all women, right? And this matters, especially as you get older in your later 30s. And so what was happening was when one ovary was ovulating, I would have a really short, quick, heavy cycle. And then when the other ovary, when it would switch, and it switches like every 2 months, this is the pattern I finally realized. And so I don't know if you knew this. I never knew this, that it can switch ovaries. And so when it would switch to a different ovary, it would be a longer cycle, but it would be lighter and my symptoms would be totally different. And so as I started to understand my cycle and recognize it and be prepared for it, it didn't, it empowered me to take ownership of that and the way that my body is designed. And so I started to learn, okay, let's see. Lareesa said she's joined. Okay, Dr. Lareesa, let's see, how do I invite you? Okay, hang on just a second, you guys. Okay, let me get Dr. Lareesa on here. Oh, I have to send you a StreamYard link. Okay, I'm sending it to you right now. I'm going to send it to your email. I've never used StreamYard before. Dr. Lareesa is a pro at it, so. Okay. Okay, I just sent it to your email. Mary, I'm assuming your comment of, oh, wow, I never knew that was in reference to your ovaries. I never knew that either. I didn't understand it. And so Dr. Lareesa can touch on that more. But anyway, I just started to learn like, okay, I had certain times in my cycle where I was more creative or wanted to be more organized or clean and all of these things. And so I just started to really understand that and own it and use it to my advantage. And so now that is how I plan. So if I feel like I just want to tackle a project and I just want to hammer it out, that's what I do instead of trying to force myself into doing something else. And so I really go where my energy flows, and it has made a world of difference. So I'm super excited to have Dr. Lareesa joining us today, and she's going to talk about this a little bit more. I'll let her introduce herself. She's much more than just a hormone expert. And so any questions you guys have throughout, I will be keeping an eye. So feel free to ask any questions as we go. We'll have a little Q&A at the end. We have to be done by 12:45. Dr. Lareesa has to be done by that. Oh, still no link. Okay, hold on just a second, you guys. It's saying that it didn't send her a link yet. Okay, hang on just a second, you guys. I'm also going to, while we're figuring out these tech issues, I would love for you guys to post in the comments, what are some things that like you're noticing in your own body that are maybe frustrating for you, or that you have a question about Dr. Lareesa, like, why do I feel like this? Or how can I change this? What's a way that I can do? The other thing she talks about a lot too, is genetics and how you're genetically designed, which is one of the things that I love. Okay. Hang on just a second, you guys. So while I'm doing this, I want you guys just to put in the comments just any thoughts that you have coming up as you're thinking about this. Dr. Lareesa, I am going to also send it through Messenger on Facebook. Maybe if I can find you. Nope. Okay, it says that it is the StreamYard link, but let me go into StreamYard, and yeah, when I click invite Dr. Lareesa, oh, there you are. I see you. Yay! Okay. Yay!
Right.
I was so nervous.
I've been messaging you. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So to the side, there's a private chat. And I was just like, I'm not sure if she can see me, but she needs to add me to the stream. So that's cool.
Okay, I did not know there was a private chat. This is my first time using this platform.
That's okay. You know.
Yay! Okay.
So great.
Finally, only, like a month later or something. So, Dr. Lareesa, I just want you to introduce yourself, tell us about you, and then we'll get started.
Okay, sure. I'll make it brief for sure. I'm not going to give you a long diatribe or anything. Hello, Heartfelt Mamas. Thank you for the invite today, Cheree. I am Dr. Lareesa, the women's hormone expert. I am an OBGYN and have a long, extensive history as a women's health, what I call partner in the team of reproductive health. And now I have transitioned into definitely a more integrative format of what that looks like, because I do believe ultimately that women need to understand the connection of mind, body, spirit, and hormones. And that as you age and how you look at aging through these pivotal times in your life, that there's a different vantage point, there's a different view. And part of that may not be necessarily in the typical office setting, because oftentimes I hear, well, I don't feel like no one understands, or I'm not valued, or I didn't really, get other options. And, real women want real choices and real informed choices. And that may be like fads or fixes or whatever that it's my duty in order to be able to bridge those things so you can have a more integrative approach to the women who are basically the backbone of society, right? Build healthier women, you build healthier communities. So, and with that, I believe you optimize hormones, you optimize your life. So that's me in a nutshell, hopefully, who I am, what I'm about. I think the why is more important than sitting in and talk about my extensive resume or my CV.
Yeah, I love it. And where are you from? Where you live in? Tell us a little bit about your family.
Oh, great. I currently live in the Orlando, Florida area, and I am married with a son, and I'll take off this hat and quickly shift to soccer mom in a little bit, with a Rottweiler at the right of me right now. So hopefully he doesn't make an appearance. He does oftentimes in the virtual world. he likes to be a lap dog. But yeah, I'm in the Orlando area, but I definitely like to show off my Louisiana girl roots. So Southern girl.
Love it.
Mhm.
Love it. Love it. And she has a handsome little dude. Oh man, he is a cutie pie. So, okay, so let's get started. I'm just going to read one of the comments really quick. Mary says, I have been super frustrated with how tired and unmotivated I can get at certain points in my cycle. I have times where I am so easily overwhelmed and just don't have the capacity to handle things. Same for me. That's what I was feeling too. That's why I started tracking it. And I think so many of us feel that. And so let's just open it up and start with that.
How old are you, Mary? Are you? And if you don't want to say your age, you can tell me whether you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50 and beyond. While waiting for that response, I will say in general, if you're definitely, okay, so almost 33, perfect. So I caught a little bit of what Cheree was saying. And so I'm really good at just trying to condense things down and try not to make them overcomplicated, because literally hormones and the symphony of hormones, what some people may mention, it's a fine balance. It's a necessary balance, but as balanced as we can get. But oftentimes things that may have served us in one part of our life may not necessarily serve us in another part of our life, because we have other additions, we have other environmental inputs, from additions to our family, maybe changes in work. And oftentimes in the postpartum period, women are getting their first hit of just changes in their hormonal balance period, and so may not necessarily fully recover from that time. So with that backdrop and kind of transferring it to a 30-something woman who gets super frustrated, and I think you had mentioned you started tracking, right? And so there's a certain flow. So for a woman in her 30s, the first question I'm going to always ask is, age, what are your periods regular? And oftentimes I ask to track, because it could have to do with certain levels in your hormone and what it needs to be in a typical 28-day cycle. Then fast forward, then, okay, if someone's not regular or not regular, then, we choose what rabbit hole we go down after that. But essentially that can help out with really ideally saying, is this one hormone taking over the wheel versus another? Is there just an imbalance, just technically through a shift? And outside of looking at menstrual cycles, my protocols have to do with, I put in 3 main umbrellas where I'm tackling, in general, the history, but the lifestyle things, because that is so important for women to connect all the dots. There's a paradigm that's shifting where we will not necessarily see things as directly, I have a symptom, and just that symptom, and just take care of that symptom. Oftentimes there's other things that are connected to it. And after that, evaluating from the lifestyle cues, from nutrition, from exercise, from, what in your environment that's causing more stress. And then I translate that, okay, what are some immediate things, laboratory studies to kind of connect that. But one in particular, I always like to make sure, let's rule out thyroid, because that's a conductor of the train, and it can often offset some other things if it's not a complete diagnosis of one particular rabbit hole versus the next. And then I like to maximize mitochondria, or your mitochondrial mojo is what I like to call it. And that's your powerhouse of your cells. And oftentimes that mojo of that energy or that imbalance that can happen from one side of the period to the next can be maximized. And this is before even deciding, oh, okay, well, I do think you would benefit from this particular supplement or this particular hormone therapy, anything. Oftentimes you need to start working on some root cause things, some things that still can be put in that picture of holistically. And I like to say WHOLE, istically, because there's a whole picture here. Like, you're a whole woman, you know? So I don't like to, you know, buy value or put you in pieces or parts, right? And I'm sure you don't either. And oftentimes you need to start connecting some of those things that really contribute to the whole woman, because that is what is going to really develop that masterpiece of longevity, of healthy aging, of healthy reproductive life, just a life that you feel like you're happy and less overwhelmed, frustrated, and unmotivated. So start tracking your cycles for sure, see where they are. And then I would start coupling not only things that have happened in the past, was it a recent baby, were you on birth control, you know, all those things. And then we start adding those big 3 umbrellas of ideally looking at what could be some root areas that need to be taken care of.
So would you say that's tip number 1 is tracking cycle?
Well, away from, I'm getting away from, you know, what the title of this is. So let me make sure. I'm answering more that this is translatable across all things, you know, even if you're 40 something or whatever. But specifically, yes, you want to be able to take a very good look at what your cycles are doing, you know, so treat your body as it's an experiment. But that goes into really that picture of what your history looks like. And part of that is menstrual tracking, just not checking off when it was your last menstrual period. How many oftentimes you might have gone to a clinical provider, they just want your LMP, you're bleeding, but a lot of the things that can tweak in my ear. And I'm like, hey, you know, I see some different deficiencies there. Then we're going to look at lifestyle, input, environmental toxins. That's that first umbrella. Second, make sure we rule out any laboratory abnormalities, things that are on a wide spectrum, very abnormal deficiencies, things that we can support a little bit more. One of those being primarily thyroid, because oftentimes thyroid could be a culprit of many things. And then that latter part is maximizing how can we make the mitochondria more robust, you know, and some of that could be simply from what do we need to take out of your diet that you may be sensitive to? Are you exercising? And then what time of the day? Are you getting enough sleep? You know, these are all things that could be maximized, like what I like to call optimized. And that's going to optimize the environment of your hormones. All right. And allow them to work better.
So I have 2 questions for you. One, do you have an app that you recommend? So, and the reason I ask that is because a lot of the ones I've tried, it's like, okay, what's your normal cycle? Well, it is based on like which ovary is ovulating. And so I find that these apps are getting me stuck in this thing. And then it's kind of off as far as what it's saying where it should be. So I don't know if you have specific apps that you recommend, or like specifically how to track your hormones.
So I caught the end where you were talking about as far as which ovary is ovulating. And see, I'm going to take it from a different level. Understand your hormones could be doing anything at any point. And it's really what's happening on a very, you know, small molecular level, where it's not, to me as a gynecologist, it's not going to matter to me which ovary is ovulating or not. It's going to matter to me, is this a side that you had surgery on? Did you have your tube removed? Because now I know the blood flow has been compromised technically to that ovary. Did you have a procedure? But technically, depending on whether you ovulating from one to another, oftentimes may not translate the same across for everyone as far as your symptoms. Knowing when you're ovulating, yes, or having the idea of where those symptoms are going on, because a lot of women, there's something called PMDD, or premenstrual dysphoric disorder, where a woman will totally describe like mid-cycle, which is typically a 28-day cycle, and normals anywhere between that. You can say that 25-ish to 35-day cycle could be regular for someone if it's around the same time of the month, same duration of days. But then she could say, I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience. I feel like I'm a total different person. The husband comes into that visit, you know, it's like, I can't take it anymore type thing. And then she starts flowing, and it's like, oh, I have my family member back again. That is, a hormonal imbalance that has to do with a defect that women can have. So going back to the original question, because I wanted to make sure refine some of the things that were said a little bit, just from a point of view of how I would look at it. So it used to be once upon a time that I will tell, like, okay, this is an app that you can use. All right. But understand, the menstrual market and the 20, 30-year-old female market is starting to blow up. So there's a lot of stuff out there. And so usually I will say whatever works for you, honestly. I mean, for me personally, I am as simple as I use my Apple Health. Okay, it has a menstrual tracker on it, and I use an Oura ring, and I correlate those type of things with the data. But there are a lot of tools out there, and I've seen many people use different things. I would say if it gets too complex and overwhelming, don't use it, because to me, it should be simple. When does it start? When are they able to log different like days where you may feel certain symptoms? The duration, how was your flow? Light, heavy, did you have pain? Those type of things. And one that can give you trends, most of them do, but one that you can lock in from one cycle to the next, because it's good to have a window. But just like you get on the scale and follow a trend, follow the trend. I'm all about KPIs for your health, key performance indicators for your health. These are mompreneurs, so this is not a new term. So the same thing that you're building in your business, you should build in your health.
I love it. That's awesome. The other question I was going to ask, I just lost it. Okay, darn it. If I think of it, I'll carry on. It was something that we were just talking about right before I asked the questions. What were we talking? What did you? Oh gosh, dang it. Okay, I'll think of it. So carry on.
Okay, I was about to say maybe the group, Mary or Brian, will chime in for you and be your peripheral brain and drop it in there for you.
I think I had, diet. That's what I was going to ask, because I know that you do something very specific. So can you touch on that a little bit more on how you specifically help women in their diet and their nutrition to kind of optimize everything?
Yeah, so let's go into that first umbrella I talked about, where really cluing into the environment, because at the end of the day, if, I'm talking to that woman out there who doesn't want to necessarily say, hey, I want a pill for every ill and that's it. You drop the mic, I'm out the door. It's more geared to understanding that all of these links contribute to our hormonal health and our well-being and our overall wellness and how we view our lives and how we show up for, the people we love. And so let nutrition still be thy medicine. And that's part of the foundational unit for many things. So specifically, I do institute what we call epigenetics within the group of women that I work with. And that's one of the integrative tools. And basically it's understanding how your genomics or your gene expression. So it doesn't necessarily say you're destined by the genes that you were passed on from your mom and your dad. It doesn't necessarily say that. It means that because of so many environmental factors, from stress, from trauma, from nutrition, from sleep, from all of these different inputs from particular medications or the deficiencies that we may get exposed to, can change exactly how our genes are expressed, meaning that our genes are little typewriters who have, your blueprint or your code. And then based on what particular, and this is not trying to be too sciencey, but based on what particular area has been exposed to type and write that message, that next message for the next protein, that protein can code for different things and for your body to manipulate. So for example, it gives you an idea of variations that can happen within someone's genetic expression. And those variations exist, even though majority of our genes are essentially the same. So it can tell you from detail of, okay, from a sleep portion, this person is more of a morning person. So ideally, this is someone, especially if we're talking about strategy, this is someone, if you might have menstrual problems or you might have some other fatigue, overwhelm. I'm all about strategy. Strategy is smart. Strategy is sexy. we're women. Who doesn't like strategy? Who doesn't like being sexy? So with that, it's like, oh, okay, if you're a night owl, then why are you trying to sleep, at a particular time? And I said that specifically because I know that's something about our CEO, Heartfelt Mama, right here. But, specifically, let's gear to something that works better for your body. And because unless you're ready to make some other changes that may necessarily express a different way, it's like you're fighting against something where you can make some other alternative moves and still feel energy or feel like you've slept well. Another could be the extent of dairy in your diet, or gluten, or the percentage of someone that is may have a propensity or chance or risk of being more insulin resistant, even though the labs may not show it. So sensitivities to those type of things. It's a wealth of information, from looking at your environmental toxins, your hormones, and other things. So it adds another metric of data for you to be more precise and get a little bit more on target than kind of, Google searching and putting things together and fetching on your own. You can be more specific for what your body wants to do.
Yeah. And I just want to give you guys a little background on the sleep thing. So Dr. Lareesa and I are actually in a coaching program together. And I was telling everyone, it's like, okay, I'm making up my mind. I'm going to be a morning person, and I'm just going to wake up early, and I'm going to get my day started. And she messaged me and she was like, just so you know, that's actually like a genetic code that like you may actually be a night person. And this is something that like I went through a while ago. I used to try to get myself to wake up early, and I would be so tired. And I just wasn't productive in the morning. It just didn't work. Whereas afternoon, I could like write out a blog post at 1 o'clock in the morning, no problem. And so I had gotten myself to where I was being more of a night owl, especially when my kids were younger. And then they went back to school, and then COVID happened, and they came back home. And so it was just kind of like a mess. And so I was trying to figure out, like, how do I optimize myself, and can I wake up early? Because the thing is if I go to bed too late, then I'm grumpy with my kids, right? And so it's this tension. But I just love that Dr. Lareesa pointed out that, like, you may just not be a morning person, and that may not be an effective time for you. And so how do you capitalize on what your body and how it works? And so that's one of the big reasons I wanted to bring her on, is just this holistic approach. Like, it's not just hormones. It's not just this, right? It's all these different moving pieces that I think sometimes we think are individual, but they all work collectively together. And so I really love that. And I know that just from like looking at your website and stuff, you recommend the eating based on your DNA type. Is that right?
So that goes into a DNA-based diet. So from your genomic evaluation, which is just a quick swab, what some people may be familiar with 23andMe, but that's more the ancestral. You can get a lot more detailed health biomarker or evaluations that may play into areas from what I mentioned before, basics of nutrition and your macronutrients, like from your proteins and your carbohydrates, and dialing down to that. It can look at your certain minerals and guide you as what you're someone that may gear more to better supplementation in this area. It looks at your sleep patterns, athletic stamina, just some other different pieces that can very much add to really being more precise to what somebody may need. So it's individualized. There are definitely a lot of things that you can use broad strokes with in medicine, but when you're really trying to optimize your health, really gear toward those things that make a difference, you need to see it as just how you would customize your Starbucks coffee, or picking a car you want, or some of these things that we customize. These gives you areas to really feel good, and allow those things to happen. So the DNA-based diet gears more to looking at what those genomic profiles look like and seeing where, compared to what you're doing now, like for me, for instance, everybody knows like, oh, okay, don't snack on refined sugars, all that kind of stuff, get your nuts. But peanuts technically are not something I need to go more than an ounce on technically, you know, because I noticed a difference when I was eating more mixed with peanuts or something versus if I geared more to just regular nuts. But even then, I had a kind of feeling if I wasn't really moving my weight mark a lot, that I was veering more to the edge of, yeah, I'm getting something that's not refined, but it's tipping me over more in my macronutrients and my calories where I'm not seeing that scale budge as much. And so just making those tweaks for someone can make a big difference. So
that's fascinating. And how, so as far as like eating and nutrition, how does that directly affect our hormones? Like, how does all that work together? And I know sleep, because if you're not getting sleep, then you have higher cortisol, right? Like, so like just kind of pull the pieces together. How does all that work together, I guess, in like simple terms?
You gave me a very loaded question to put in simple terms. So I'm going to make it a simple question so I can give you a simple answer, or try to give a simple answer. And you started off great, Cheree, but no matter what, there's a bigger picture. Your hormones are the communicators, the repair mechanisms, just the hidden figures, what I like to call behind the scenes, but they're exposed in your bloodstream. And when they're exposed to your bloodstream, that means that they can interact with pretty much everything. And so it's kind of like that gossip game that, you know, back in the day, some people talk about the orchestrated symphony. I like to say, well, either someone at one line of the communication, it didn't read the same programming by the end. So you're getting kind of like a lopsided response. So let's give, for example, sleep. That's the only time your brain detoxes. So if you're not getting enough sleep, then we're looking at what is your sleep hygiene. Are there what we call neurotransmitter issues where there's some brain chemistry type things that could be unbalanced? What are your food contributions? Was there a large amount of alcohol through the day, or a late heavy meal, or any of those type of things? Because think of the millions of thoughts, the multitasking that you've done throughout the day, but yet sleep is the only time that your brain can just shut down, and then you're not getting it. So that impacts your control center, where your hormones mainly are started, or that initiation of the communication. And so now we have a misrouted response the next day. And so that could be, or continuously with serious sleep deprivation for a time, your brain fogginess, or difficulty losing weight, because I'm gonna put that out there, but sometimes it takes a celebrity to say it. So when J-Lo says that part of my weight loss plan was sleeping 8 hours, I mean, people listen, but medical people talk about that all the time, you know? So, but hey, whatever works to go toward the movement. So that's one thing. Nutrition, a big component where I gear to more definitely DNA-based and plant-based diets, or nutrition, or what I say plant power, because the minute we start putting too many terms on things, because many people may still want to do keto or paleo or whatever, but more power-rich plants in your diet, excuse me, because there are other things that could mimic hormones, all right? So all of a sudden we have to talk about organic and non-organic, but you know, back in the day it was just food.
Yeah.
Right? You knew your local farmers, you knew what grocery store, but because, you know, you have to meet the demand, you know, the supply had to expand somehow. And so therefore you had to create that supply. And so it didn't necessarily come from the mom and pops where you can know where you're sourcing your food. And because of that, things have become, you know, a lot more overprocessed, you know, so things that tend to have those overprocessed of, so anything packaged or canned, yes, you have to read, you have to understand that all of those things could have unwarranted chemicals that can mimic your hormones. So that plays a large tool into it. So what happened over COVID? I love that meme with the froggy. I don't know if you thought the Kermit the Frog, like before COVID, after COVID, Kermit the Frog. I thought it was the best. I did. But essentially, but apparently the snack business went out the roof, and not only toilet paper, but snacks were going. So just think of all of those things that were still contributing to potential hormonal dysfunctions. And because they're mimicking our normal communication, therefore the gossip game or that communication from one to the other may be altered and not necessarily the same. And then don't add on to it if you have underlying estrogen dominance, endometriosis, or PCOS, or some of these known diagnoses out there where you already have an existing imbalance. So that definitely can play a part. And that's just to give you an idea where make it more palatable to understand that it can have a greater effect when even those two components you're not getting the right of. And then therefore you can see a lot of that miscommunication over time resulting in the symptoms that we show up at the doctor about.
Yeah, that was a perfect answer. That's exactly that pulled it all together really good, I think. Okay, so we only have you have 3 minutes and then you have to go, right, Dr. Lareesa?
Yes, I think I was trying to see because it started raining. And so I was like, well, I wonder if they're going to cancel practice. I'm not sure. So we'll give about 5 more minutes. Yeah, that's fine.
Mary and Danny, do you have any questions specifically for Dr. Lareesa before we wrap up? Phone is ringing. See if anything comes up here.
Frustrated, and then almost 33. And so Mary had something, and then okay, no, I didn't see anything else.
Okay, let's see. Mary said, I heard from someone that we shouldn't exercise during the first week of our cycle because it increases cortisol. Would you say that is true?
I love this question. So there are many things, like if you really go into, and some people have written some books and good articles about this, and I can't remember their names right now, only under time pressure, about like the period logistically was something that from different cultures was a time of replenishment for a woman. So it wasn't we're talking about modern women who are having cycles and trying to translate that to now, where at a time this was, the most consider, I don't want to say purification. I don't want to use the wrong terms or anything out there. I know this is going live on YouTube, but still as a time of a woman being at one with herself and not putting additional burdens. So let's translate that to what's going on in this hormonal chemistry. And so technically the answer to that is yes, but understand that can happen anyway throughout your cycle. All right. Because if cortisol is a response to either excess stress, it'll constantly output. And a big hormone that we won't get a chance to talk about is insulin regulation. And insulin is a major hormone player, not only to say I'm diagnosed with diabetes or lack of, it is a major player in a lot of what happens in the rhythm of hormones. It is a hormone. So for women who do excessive exercises or CrossFit or any of those type of things, you always have to look back, okay, are you having or displaying certain symptoms? Because if it's not balanced out with relaxation, some stretching, you could have 5 kids and a high-powered job and then you're out doing that. Yes, this is someone's overall cortisol level if they don't have the right support to their system, talking about the mitochondria, talking about the recovery, because stress can be a good thing. Stress is not all bad. It's when we take it and we don't do anything about it and we stay on overdrive and we don't know how to turn it off. And so in those instances, I would disagree to say it's only during the cycle. You can get steady spurts of cortisol throughout, and it just ends up even more when you're doing over the point of return of certain exercise routines at a time where your body needs to replenish more. And so I do get culturally why that ends up being a time of rejuvenation for your body, replenishment. And if you're still going hard, and especially if you don't see some of the results that you would like, that could be a time where you decide more low impact yoga, stretching, meditation, something that's still active. I want us to move to conversation like movement, purposeful movement, knowing that just because we signed up at a gym or, all the different multi-purpose fitness centers, just to say we got it in, but if you're not getting the results that you need and they're not sustainable, then that gears toward, especially for women, really targeting to what are some of the things that aren't working for you, because then that may have to be changing the routine of when you work out, how you work out, and how hard.
Yeah, I think that is such a good bring back to even just in business of like, it's okay if your body needs rest. Whether that, I'm a runner and like there's days where I just don't have it in me, and I know it's hormonal, and so I can be okay knowing that like, okay, I'm not just being lazy. Like not that I just need to suck it up and push through it. I know that in a couple of days it'll be back to normal, and being okay with that and like listening to your body and having that body awareness, I think is so important. So
absolutely. And it's the same thing that I think we've discussed before with going out in the world and trying to explain to people the purpose of having your team Cheree, team Lareesa, team Mary. You can be high performance business owners and winners in everything you do, but having that appropriate team. And if that looks like, a coach or consultant, yes, because guess what? All those Olympic athletes, they have a team around them. They have physical therapy. Are you stretching? They have an ice bath waiting for them. Are you trying cryo by chance? So if you're hitting it hard, understand your waves of comparison, their teams around them who are using metrics, who are using flexibility tools, who are making sure that these high performance athletes don't get injuries, don't, have to, be able to recover, but can return back to the field. Think of football players, but even football players, they have to have like a day off. Most teams want them to connect with family and, their lives or whatever. But understand, when we're reaching for those goals and looking at, our ideal of perfection, there's a team around them to help, get them there and understand the physiology behind it. I don't know one Olympiad that can tell you, I just did it and I didn't rest or recover, or I didn't have a certain meal plan. And, they have people who are tracking them, and they have good documentaries out that are talking about these things, from the level of technology that they're using and, personal cuisine that's shipped in, a certain way. So if you go hard, understand it's nothing wrong with approaching it a little different. It's not just going to the gym and just saying, hey, and all of a sudden you got a sprained something, understand you're just as elite because you're the women out there that's keeping all these things glued together. So.
I love it. So good, Dr. Lareesa. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much. And I'm sure
thank you for having me.
Watch this, and there may be conversation that kind of spurs on from this. And I'll post some questions in the group to kind of carry on this conversation. But ladies, thank you for being here and watching this. If you're watching the replay, if you have questions or comments, let us know. And
you can tag me. And just if anything, reach out to Cheree, and she knows where to find me as well. So good to be part of this group. And continuing to be the heartfelt mamas that you are, and bring all the beauty and the love and all you do in the world. All right.
Dr. Lareesa, will you tell us where people can find you really quick?
Yes. You can find me. It's funny. drlareesa.com, and you can, I can't type. I didn't realize I couldn't type in the comments. So it's www.drlareesa, exactly how it's like here. And I like to express that because mentally your brain is going to want to put two S's, but it's one S.com. And you can find me on Insta at Dr. Lareesa, and Facebook at the Estrogen Doctor, and LinkedIn at Dr. Lareesa Ferdinand. So those are the areas.
I just put your put the website link in there.
Okay.
Dr. Lareesa is also in the Heartfelt Mamas community. So if you want to reach out to her, if you want to work with her, you can find her there as well. But if you are watching this on YouTube, you're not in that community, you can come join us, or you can go Google Dr. Lareesa and you will find women's hormone expert.
Yes. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.